Will increase by $2.6 million to around $11.5 million, which is clearly available on our agenda, if I can find it. Anyway, it's in our agenda on... Richard, what page is that on? I promise you it's here.
In terms of the...
Oh, here it is, on page 56 of your agenda. Prospective Statement of Comprehensive Income, page 56 of 115, operating surplus, right across to the right-hand side under the 2014-2015 annual plan, $11.5 million. Now, what's really important about this amendment to understand is what I'm proposing is a one-off reduction in our rates increase. I'm not proposing this to be rolling forward. Now, I will be arguing for lower rates next year, and I'll keep on doing it every year, but it will not be on this basis. And I think there was some confusion last time when people asked, what is the impact of this $1.3 million reduction in rates? Richard, the CFO, came out with from memory, Richard, it was a figure of compounding out to $18 million.
I think it was, 15 to 18 million.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, that cannot be the situation I'm talking about is a situation where in year one, we reduce rates by $1.3 million, and in that situation, you're right, our debt would not increase, beg your pardon, would fail to reduce by $1.3 million because instead of taking it all ourselves, we're giving half it back to the ratepayers, and there would, I've assumed, a 6% interest rate, which is close enough, is it?
Yep.
Okay. So in the first year, that impact...
I need an extension.
I'll move.
By Councillor
Thank you.
Wilson, seconded by Councillor McPherson.
So the first year, the impact of that would be 1.322000 increase in what our debt would have been, plus a little bit more interest, because you have to pay interest on that. So that's $1.4 million. Every year after that, all that we're compounding is the actual interest. There's not another $1.3 million reducing. So in actual fact, I'm not sure if we're in year 3 or year 4 of our district plan.
Annual plan would this will be 3 year.
Okay, so to the end of our annual 10-year plan, the impact of what I'm doing will only affect our debt, if all other things remain equal, by $1,987,000. Now, bear in mind, that's not money that's disappeared. That's money that remains in the hands of our ratepayers. So it's nothing like the $18 million, which I think you must have, to get that figure, you must have assumed that every year from here on in, $1.3 million will be coming off in the 10-year annual plan. Otherwise, you can't get anywhere near $18 million.
And also we included the, the impact of the difference between the 2.8% and 3.2% annually as well. So basically...
So you did imply it. So the implication from... And I'm not, look, this was a genuine misunderstanding. Richard was asked what's the impact of this. He compounded as if we did this every year. So instead of our 10-year annual plan being 3.8% every year going forward, it was to be 2.8%, I think, is what I'm saying. That is not the purpose of this. Now, I'm going to be fighting like hell for rates increases next year, but I won't be doing that.
We've got the lights flashing again for your time limit. Okay. So could you just very quickly...
Okay, summing up, the council has done a great job, and most of it was done by the previous council, so there were some people around this table who deserve accolades, and certainly these staff, and meeting our financial target. This year, we've identified $2.6 million of savings over and above what we all approved 2 months ago to go out for public consultation. I'm suggesting that $2.6 million should not all go to the benefit of the council. Half of it should go to the benefit of the council, 1.3, and the other half should go to the ratepayers of Hamilton. That in no way jeopardises our financial position, in no way pushes out the date to a balanced budget, but it does give our ratepayers a fair suck of the sea.
Right, thank you.
Good.
So I just, before I go to Councillor Forsyth, I just wanted to check with the CFO. Was there anything that you just wanted to, from a CFO point of view, just clarify for councillors in respect of that?
So one of the items I need to consider is ensuring that the annual plan that we adopt today meets legal requirements.
Right.
So if there are any changes to that process, I need some time to run them through to make sure it stacks up, and that would take probably around about a day to run it through here in the rates resolution and to validate that process. And the only thing that concerns me is we need to adopt the annual plan by 30 June.
Right.
So if we don't adopt it today because of those changes, we have to have another meeting before. I'm not too sure what the
What's the
process to
date today?
achieve
The
that.
27th.
26th, Monday's the 30th.
Right.
So note that. Have you got any response to the?
Yep, so note that. In terms of the comment regarding the NZTA subsidy and the operating surplus, we deliberately set a balance in the books target that was more conservative. Whilst NZTA subsidy is a real amount of money in the bank, we had to effectively spend twice that because the subsidy only funds half of the capital items, and those capital items are expended through the balance sheet, not the profit and loss, and that's the reason we excluded them, to actually have an apples with apples comparison. In terms of the compounding impact, there will be a compounding impact. I don't have the numbers in front of me in terms of how I calculated the initial number, but that was reflecting a reduction to 2.8% in that carrying forward. So that's all really I've got to say on that.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you.
Sorry,
Sorry, did you have a question, councillor Mallett, or? I'll just
Sorry,
with him.
sorry, I think you might have got
Right, I'll go with councillor Wilson, your question, thanks.
Sure, thank you. To the to the Chief Financial Officer, I've listened to Councillor Mallett's proposition. I just want a point of clarification. Am I correct in saying that under the proposal advanced by Councillor Mallett, what funds we return to the ratepayer in the form of a rate reduction is ultimately borrowed? It's not surplus cash or cash that's not spent, it's physically borrowed, i.e. council has to borrow it to fill that hole.
Right, okay. Councillor Mallett, did you have a question?
Yeah, just, Richard, I wonder if you could you address the $18 million scenario? Because I've got it here. Year one, it's 1.3 million at 1.06, which is the principal plus the interest, which gives you 1.4 million. Every other year at 8%, the first year it's $84,000 worth of interest, additional interest that we're paying because we didn't reduce the debt by 2.6, we only reduced it by 1.3. Next year it's 89, next year it's 94, then it's 100, then it's 106, then it's 112. In total, over 7 years, including the 1.3 million, it's $1,987,000. So we are screeds within our debt, and we're better off than we were when we set this initial annual plan out.
I think I understand this question.
You
I
understand
think
the
I understand the question. And unfortunately, and my apologies, Councillor Mallett, I wasn't prepared for this discussion today, so I didn't bring my workings with me. I can send Reneel off to go and pull the information together as quick as we can to validate those numbers.
Okay, can you just...
But
Can you just
ultimately...
Can you just, no, just,
But
can you just...
keeping it really simple.
Yes,
Keeping it really simple. If we were to borrow the money today, if we were to reduce the rates increase today, we would need to borrow, and there would be a compounding impact on that amount. I haven't got the information in front of me right now to validate that amount.
So thank you. And Councillor Mallett?
This was really important because it's a question of magnitude between
Okay, well,
1.9 million and
Councillor
18...
Mallett, can you ask the question,
Yes.
not the whole lead-in? What is your question?
I'll ask the question. The question is, based on what you now understand about my proposal, and assuming an interest rate of 6%, now that's the only assumption here, the rest of it is just maths. Based on instead of reducing our debt by 2.6 million, and only reducing our debt by 1.3 million, and not taking the rest off our ratepayers, that I am correct in saying at a 6%, and I'm not expecting to check my maths here, but it comes out at 1.9 million, that we'd have to borrow than we would have if we don't give that money back to the ratepayers. And is that correctly answer the fact that it is not $18 million or anything like $18 million?
Unfortunately, Councillor, I don't have my information available in front of me to actually validate that one way or another.
Richard, can I help? And I appreciate you probably trying to do this through haze of drugs at the moment, but the issue here, even though it's a one-off reduction,
Perhaps a rephrase.
then we're coming off a lower base. We're coming off a lower base for all of that time, so that lower, in fact, we're working off that lower base will compound through that full 10-year period.
That's right, so it's the impact
Not
of
just a
compounding interest.
one-off reduction.
So Councillor Mallett, I think one of the difficulties you have in this line of questioning is the staff have not come prepared to answer these, and you're going through an analysis of figures and calculations, and so the difficulty we've got is that probably your questions can't be answered in a specific sense because the information and paperwork's not here, and they weren't pre-briefed, I guess, that they would need all this stuff to be here. So that's why I'm saying to you, if you've got questions, look, fine, but they need to be very specific, and there's no point in going through calculations because, as the CFO has said, he hasn't brought his workings with him, and he has been through all of this at the last meeting where we went through all of this stage by stage when he did have his workings, and we went through all your questions then.
Can I just one more
if you've got one more question,
is the $18 million that the roughly $18 million, that's from memory, it was $18 million or something like that. The $18 million that you said this would, the impact of this amendment would be on the debt, was that based on every year $1.3 million being reduced off? So for the end of the annual plan, instead of just 1 year where we reduced our rates increase by $1.3 million, it was every single year we're reducing our rates increase by $1.3 million.
So the number I gave you is the difference between the forecasted rates, the forecasted debt number in year 2022 based on this draft, based on annual plan versus based on annual plan with a $1.3 million reduction in rates in year one. So that includes so that includes the compounding impact of the interest on that, and also the fact that we have a compounding impact of 3.8% on 3.8%, which is now going to be a 3.8% on 2.8%.
For 1 year.
But ultimately reduces that increase down for each, the curve reduces for the entire period of the annual plan. So for the year 22, it reduces down as well. So that was the concept. So the way we work these out is look at that year 22 number, what is it now versus what is it under that scenario, and there's a whole lot of compounding impacts of both interest
Close, right.
and the
That's not the question.
Okay,
I
so
asked.
no, Councillor Mallett, I'm sorry, but you've persisted, and this is the best the CFO is going to give back to you. So I'm not going to take it.
That was
Not
not
going
the
to take.
question I asked.
I think actually he has answered the question. Your question relates to the compounding over the 10 years, and he has said to you that it does affect out to the 10 years. Now, the analysis of your particular figures, you would need to sit down with him and go through those. So I think you've asked and he's answered, and that's the answer you're getting. Now, I've got Councillor Forsyth next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me, it seems quite a trivial point by comparison, but it was really just something that I noted about the graph on the annual plan on page 11. Bearing in mind that this will be going out to...
Sorry, Your Worship, are we not debating the amendments at the moment? I don't mean to interrupt, but it'll be...
So I think, Councillor McPherson, there have been questions interspersed, and so normally we take questions, but has been fed back to me that it's sometimes quite useful when there is an amendment to actually hear what the position is so that people can understand what that amendment means. Now, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Mallett have asked questions interspersed, and I had Councillor Forsyth on here for questions. I'm going to ask if there's any more questions.
On the amendment issue?
Generally.
Generally, okay.
And then we will go back to
Right.
debate. Okay, so I've got Councillor Forsyth, page 11.
It's not on the amendment.
Page 11 of the actual document, isn't
Of the
it?
actual annual,
Yeah.
no, page 47.
Page 47.
47 of the agenda and 11 of the annual
Right.
plan. And it's just the pie graph.
High graph, yep.
Well, basically it says, the arts and recreation pie chunk at 16%. To me, the pictorial part of it didn't look like it was being represented properly when you compared it to transportation that was 24%, and it was a smaller piece of the pie graph. I just thought, well, this is going out to rate.
That's
That's a very good point.
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
Very
Also,
good.
Very good point.
So the numbers are wrong somewhere.
It's,
Yep, we'll make sure that's corrected for the version when it goes out, Councillor Forsyth, so thank you for that.
Okay.
Sure you've got time.
That was all.
Very good, thank you for
You
raising
sure
it
you've
now.
got time?
I'm
with
just
all those
on,
calculations?
I'm just on questions at the moment, so are there any questions on the annual plan? Any more questions? No?
On the amendment or on the
No,
annual?
there's a question, so if it's a question on the amendment for clarification or a question on the annual plan, I'll take it. If it's to debate or talk about, then you're in the pecking order, so is it a
Okay,
question?
so I've got a question on the amendment, and that is a question to the CFO. The $2.644 million saving that councillor Mallett has included in his motion, am I correct in assuming that that will not lead to council budgeting for a surplus, that that saving will simply reduce the budgeted deficit?
I think, Councillor, thank you, Councillor Pascoe. Councillor Mallett was correct in terms of we do have the balancing the books target, and we do have the operating surplus target, which is a true accounting definition. Based on a true accounting definition, we do achieve we are black in the backs sooner. We set a very conservative approach for the balancing the books target, and based on the current annual plan that's sitting in front of you, we still achieved that in 2016. We achieve an accounting surplus sooner than that. But again, we deliberately set a conservative budget target for our balance in the books.
So I'm not sure whether that is what, that answers the question. When I look at the budget update and it's not included in today's agenda, but I noticed that there was a deficit of 5.9 million before the 2.644 million savings had been identified, which then reduced the proposed deficit for 14-15 to 3.266 million.
That's correct.
So that remains. I mean, my question is,
Yep.
we're still budgeting for a deficit even with the $2.6 million
Sorry, now I understand.
savings.
Yeah, my apologies, Councillor Pascoe. Now I understand the question. The answer simply is yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're still in deficit.
Yes. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Yes.
My apologies, councillors.
We're not at the balanced position. Yes, right.
that at home.
Any more questions? Is yours a question?
Yes, it is.
Go.
I always follow the rules, Your Worship, you know that.
Oh, right, okay.
Just a question on clarification. I did, on page 67, I noticed that when, after note 7, note 8 changed, and I did read underneath it, because in the draft document, note 8 was borrowings. And just to make sure that I understand, there's a comment under note 8, investments in
Excuse me, Angela, did you
CCO.
say note 8?
Note 8 on
Page
page
67.
67. Yep.
Page 67, note 8.
That note is a change to the draft, and that I'm just understanding that correctly. Nothing else has changed.
As a requirement, include additional information. It doesn't actually
Yeah.
change the nature of the balance sheet. It's just additional
Okay.
information.
Now, I just wonder, Your Worship, it would be really helpful to keep track changes any time we adopt a draft of the new. Yeah.
Yep,
Can we
thank
please
you.
keep track changes? I
Thank
got
you.
stuck on that.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you, and I appreciate you going
Any
through
other
it as well.
questions? No, so, did you have a question, councillor Tooman?
Just one
Yes.
question for clarification. Page 25, in the, under other revenue,
Which page?
25?
25 of what, the agenda or annual plan?
Oh, sorry, page 61. 61. Item 8. Under other revenue, in the first paragraph there, you've got revenue from traffic and parking infringements recognised when the infringement notice is issued. In other words, somebody goes out on the street and gives a $200 infringement. Is that then counted as revenue?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, we count that as revenue, but we also do an adjustment effectively at the end of that month to recognise a portion of that would be doubtful. So we're not carrying the risk of not collecting it completely. We do an adjustment to reflect any uncollectible portion of that.
But that would take some months by the time it went through the court system, would it not?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So just a question on subsequent to that one, if I may, Your Worship. Is that based on the historical collection percentage? I'm not sure that's the right technical term, but
It is the right
it's been
term,
debated in our council meetings for 3 or 4 years now, and that percentage has been applied. So we effectively you're only budgeting 40% of the fines, or at the end of the day when you do the wash, something like that.
Your Worship, yes, you are correct, Councillor McPherson. Yes, that's what we refer to it as, and we take quite a conservative approach to make sure that we don't basically introduce any additional risk into our balance sheet for uncollectible amounts.
Thanks.
Right, okay. So now, Councillor Mallett has spoken to his amendment. Are there any other councillors who want to speak for or against the amendment and the motion? So we will do them together, so that we only have to do the one speaking. So I had you on the list, Councillor McPherson. Did you still want to speak?
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Look, it's not often that I will be found agreeing with Councillor Mallett on financial issues, especially on financial issues, but
This is being recorded.
yes, I know.
Yeah, great.
It may even be held against me, or you, or both of us.
All right.
I've listened to his arguments. I wasn't sure when I first heard them, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought the proposition he put forward was fair. And essentially, with the leaving aside the figures, and his figures are certainly accurate in terms of the accrual over 7 years of the, to our debt, leaving that aside, we're talking about a one-off rates reduction due to a one-off expenditure reduction. It's quite simple. And you have to choose whether you think that's appropriate or not. As a councillor colleague of mine said only a few months ago, it's all about the balance. And I think there is a need for some balance here that doesn't just accrue any benefits that we create through the council's work. It shouldn't just accrue to the debt sheet, basically. And the clear area that Gary is proposing is that some of those benefits, 50% of that one-off benefit, accrue to the ratepayers. And I don't actually see a problem with that on a one-off basis. It doesn't materially change the date whereby we will achieve a balanced budget. It's a marginal, but very marginal in terms of the overall scheme of things. And my choice is that we do apply some of that benefit as a one-off to the ratepayers, and it's fairly simple, and I think we should go with that.
Right, any other speakers for it? Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm quite sympathetic to Councillor Mallett's wish to reduce rates. I think our ratepayers have been quite long and suffering, but as Chair of Finance, I would speak against the motion and the amendment in saying that I don't think it's the right time. I think we have, when I say we, the more recent council and this current council are committed to a road towards surplus, and I think it's fiscally prudent that we should reach the surplus first before we start tinkering with making these changes.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary?
Thank you, Bishop. I'm going to be a little bit indulgent, which I don't often do and probably take up all my speaking time. I'm going to be speaking for the motion.
Amendment or motion?
No, for the motion.
Thanks.
Against the amendment. And in doing so, I'm going to reflect back 4 years, because there's a small item within this annual plan that I want to recap the journey and share it with all my new colleagues around the table. 4 years ago, a very young, much younger, very energetic and very enthusiastic young councillor sat around this table, not really knowing what was going on, and proposed an idea to web broadcast all of our council and committee meetings. And through that enthusiasm and energy, she had no idea what was going to happen, and the opposition that she faced was, it was interesting. It was considerable, and I guess gave her the very first insight into what the dark side of politics, let's call it that. The only intention that she had was to make council more transparent, and for people who put us in this position to see how we vote and how we behave and how we debate, and I thought that was a really great thing. She received massive support from the community, which was really great, but sadly not from her colleagues of the day. And I know some of the GMs were around the table then too. things like cute little publicity stunt and stupid girl and stupid idea
Just
became
point of order, Your
headlines.
Worship. Some of that young enthusiastic councillor's colleagues of the day did actually support it.
Yes,
I
I'm
just
getting
want
to that.
clarify that. Okay.
So on your,
Sounded like none of them did.
your point of
Oh,
order,
no.
she's getting to that.
Definitely some of my more learned friends around the table thoroughly supported me. So 4 years later, that idea that naive young councillor had is about to be ticked off in this annual plan. That's, of course, unless anyone's brave enough to say, no, let's kick that one out. And while I'm not so young anymore, I am still enthusiastic about this plan and this council. And the fact that we have a mayor who's put forward the first plan under the new legislation that has embraced not only that small idea, but other ideas like Councillor Wilson's free entry into Waterworld for under fives, the passion that Councillor McPherson has had forever and a day about playgrounds. And look, I think that that's really something to celebrate. From this day forward, all council meetings and all committee meetings will be broadcast live. So people will be able to tune in and see some of these really hot topics that are coming up, like the rating review, like the issues that are going to come up in our 10-year plan. And of course, like the very topical issue of how the city delivers water resources to our people in the future. So let it be known that this council supports ideas and that this council isn't afraid of ideas and of trying new things, and that the leader of this council is out front championing those ideas. So I want to congratulate everybody. I needed to reflect back on that journey because it was an interesting one and I grew up a lot through it, bad or worse, and I do thank Councillor McPherson, who I think, and Councillor Chesterman, who were probably two of my only three supporters during that time. And yeah, I happily, more wisely, but no less enthusiastically support this annual plan.
Thank you, Councillor Leary, and you delivered that within your time frame.
Oh.
Very, very good. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, I wasn't going to speak. I just would add to the record that I also supported that, and I had worked for some time with community radio to see if we could have radio broadcasting, but the reality was that technology has superseded, and that is excellent. I'm looking forward to discussions with my community forum colleagues, possibly if we have a major item with the community forum. Thank you, Councillor O'Leary, that we'll bring that particular forum into the chamber so that it's and I take the guarantee that if the community forum require something to be televised because of matters of high public interest, that's a given, and that of course will be included in the budget, and that is a given. But look, that's an excellent, I do compliment Councillor O'Leary and others for wanting to try and get this chamber more accessible. And it's interesting, even if you only have 100, 200, 500 hit rates, at least it's giving the opportunity for the citizenry to actually have a look at what's going on, and I'm very enthusiastic that gets extended into the committee stages, as is the case with Parliament and other councils around the world. I also just want to acknowledge that I do think Councillor Mallett has, if you like, issued a challenge. I don't think this is the proper year to do it, but I'm going to be cognizant of the advice from the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Executive that in fact that we are still in a situation where we do need to reduce a debt. We also are in a situation in terms of wanting to move into surplus within the next 2 or 3 years. So on balance, I'm going to listen to the very good advice of Councillor Pascoe, and also I thank him for his acknowledgement of the very hard work that the previous council did to get the ship shape, and now we are seeing the fruits of that very good financial management in the previous 3-year term.
Right, any other speakers for or against? I'll just make some comments, councillors. It's essential, in my view, that this council continues to support the financial plan that was put in place. It is tempting because we've done so well, but we need to get another year under the belt, and when we look at the 10-year plan, that is our time to fully analyse what our current city situation is. We do know that there are some big issues we will be grappling with in that budget, which is about growth and asset management plans. So we don't have all the information in front of us to make a decision such as the one Councillor Mallett is inviting us to do, in my view. This is a little bit of a test, I guess, for the new council. Can we keep to the plan and keep in the direction we're going? The single biggest thing we can do for the city is get ourselves to a balanced position, because for the first time in over a decade we will be operating as we would expect to operate, which is money in, money out in simple terms. So that is where we've got to go, and I'm asking colleagues to keep that in their minds and then stave those debates. And Councillor Mallett is absolutely right, we do need to deliver better to the ratepayer, but we've got to fix it up first, and then we can have those discussions in the coming 6 months. So, councillors, we will go to the board on this. We are voting for the amendment, which is that up there. Okay.
Defeated, 10 votes for, 3 against.
Thank you. Now, we're now going to vote on the motion, and we're going to go to the board.
Before you do that, Worship, the motion will be that the annual plan
Yes.
is adopted, including the updated funding impact statements that have been handed out as well.
Yes, that's right. And that was moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by me. So we're voting on that, councillors?
Carried, 11 votes for, 2 against.
Right. Thank you. The next item is item 9, and that is a report. This is a resolution required to set the rates, and I will move 7 and 8, and it's seconded by Councillor Wilson.
Just to be very clear, when you come to, there's an updated resolution that was handed out today. We specifically have to adopt the resolution as it stands in attachment 1, and the minutes need to reflect every point of the resolution as setting the rates.
That's right. So I'm moving that. It's been seconded by Councillor Wilson. Is there any discussion on this? Yes, Councillor
Just a question, what are the changes between this, which we just received 10 seconds ago, and the thing we had time to read?
Nothing fundamental, just some change in wording, and in fact we just changed the title actually.
Can you tell us what they are?
Yes, so on, I haven't
What page on the agenda and the original agenda is it?
page 101 of the agenda, and could I have a copy of the changed version, please? So the on page 101 of 115, targeted rate 100% fully non-rateable properties.
Sorry, say that again.
On page 101, targeted rate 100% fully non-rateable properties.
Yep.
Has now been updated to say targeted rate special use land. Ultimately, it's just a change of wording to make sure that we're actually calling it what it is, to be fair. As part of the process for setting the rates, we also make sure that we review all our documentation through our lawyers, and a number of recommendations we made for improvement. They weren't mandatory, but we thought it'd be an opportune time to ensure we captured those. So if you look on there's no page numbers on the handout, but the third page in on the handout, bottom of that page, targeted rate special land use.
Special use land.
Special use land, that has now been that is the new update. Previously, as it referred to as targeted rate 100% fully non-rateable properties.
But Richard, just very quickly, it's not just a change in heading.
No, it's the wording within that.
The whole thing's changed. Okay.
Yep. But it's the same outcome. We just needed to make sure the wording was as up to date as possible.
How do we got on something we haven't had a work reading?
No, I think what I'm understanding from the CFO is one thing that's very, very important is that the wording is accurate.
We haven't read it.
So
Literally got it.
So in terms of the legal requirement, the consequences there are no consequences, it's the accuracy of the wording.
That's correct, Your Worship.
So I'm just going to take a question from Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, my question was, the end result of these changes means that we are complying with statute. Is this the legal interpretation of what we've previously prepared? This is the Tompkins Wake version that says you now comply with the Local Government Act in terms of this resolution.
So we've always complied with legislation. The auditors last year reviewed thoroughly our rating resolution, and so did Tompkins Wake. It's never been an issue. We've just taken an opportunity based on a recommendation from Tompkins Wake to just a continuous improvement recommendation to update the wording further, just to remove any
So second question, Your Worship, so either of these are compliant, both of these reports would be, in terms of their wording and presentation, would be compliant with the Local Government Act?
My recommendation is the updated version is best practice. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, is the best practice way of going.
Thank you.
Right, so are there any other questions on this? So Councillor Mallard?
Well, it just really concerns me that, we all endeavour to read our stuff at various degrees of depth, but when something arrives that is significant, it looks to me to be significantly different than what we have read, turns up and it's something as important as the definition of a rate. I just don't know how we can be expected to responsibly cast a vote for or against.
So I think, Councillor Mallard, the way I've approached...
So we just trust, do we?
The way I've approached this is that we have just signed off on the annual plan, and that is our budget for the coming financial year, and we've spent a number of months looking and analysing that. This resolution is an implementation of that and ensures that it is legally compliant with the appropriate wording as recommended by the lawyer. Now, if you wish to put this item aside and take time to read it and answer it, look, I'm very happy with that. I'm fine about that. Is that what you'd like to do?
Well, I don't know what other choice we've got. I mean...
Well, we can put it aside and take the next item. We can... So, Councillor Mallard,
this could be a blank piece of paper.
Well, but it's not a blank piece of paper.
But it's a piece of paper that, as far as I think, no one around the table has seen, other than as we sat down and then had the prayers and had the debate. I don't think anyone else has read this, have they?
Can I suggest, Your Worship, that we maybe decide on it after afternoon?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So, Councillor Mallard, I'm very happy to put the item aside.
Okay.
And then after afternoon tea, we'll come back to it.
Good.
Right, thanks. Okay, item 10. Item 10 is the rating review item.
Military information.
Okay, that's fine.
So, Your Worship, this is the culmination of staff recommendation in terms of the rating review. Thank you. And effectively, we've had 3 workshops by Council, with Council considering the various options. Workshop number 1 provided a general introduction to Council. Workshop number 2 provided an outline of various options at a high level, and workshop number 3 provided a management recommended position with a view, with some supporting information to provide some context for our recommendation as well. So today I'm making a recommendation that Council moves through to preparing a statement of proposal, and the statement of proposal is based around the preparation of a capital value general rate. That capital value general rate maintains the same yield, and that we look to transition that that move to capital value over a 10-year period.
Right, thank you. Now, there's some questions for the CFO. Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, I have a couple. Firstly, I take it that the statement of proposal is only going to include our preferred position. It's not going to include any information relating to other options or variations, and by variations, by example, the concept of a cap on the increase. It's not going to include any information about variations on capital.
I'm just going to seek some advice. I've never prepared a statement of proposal before, so I'm not too sure what to include.
John's done a couple here.
So, Sarah, can you provide?
So we'll include, okay, that's helpful, thanks. And Will it include the statement of proposal? I understand there'll be some general all-encompassing one. Will it include information about specific rates charges to specific properties? So when ratepayer X gets the statement of proposal in their rates bill or however they see it, it will say, this is your rate now, or they'll know what their rate now is. This will be what it is over the next 10 years.
Thank you.
We will have to show trends and impacts on various sectors, categories of rate, it won't go down to specific individual properties, so we'll show like if some of these properties actually move up by 20% to 30% over the different categories of
We also intend to do a direct mail approach to all ratepayers, which will show the individual increases as well.
Okay, well, that's the important bit.
I think that covers off your question.
Yeah, it does.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this report? Yes, Councillor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Look, I just had one question around item 6 in the executive summary. We talk about a minimum of 1 month's public consultation. Is that the minimum required by law? Is that a minimum suggested by you? And my only question really was, a second part of that, should we be doing it for a slightly longer period, like 6 weeks? It's a substantial public consultation, and I would hate for us to be doing the minimum when there is an opportunity to go a bit longer. So could you address that?
So firstly, that is the legal minimum, is 1 month. We've considered the submission period, or the period by which the consultation will be open in context of the overall calendar as well, to ensure that we have the rates resolution, rating review decision made in time for them to be included in as part of the policy review that needs to be done for the long-term plan. So it's the minimum
It's a
allowable.
practical solution to
There's a
ensure
practical
that
aspect to it as
it
well.
meets in the 10-year plan policy reviews.
So we need to update the revenue and financing policy and the rating policy as part of the long-term plan. So it's making sure that we can meet all those obligations in the long-term plan for next year.
Because I was thinking about it not from our obligations,
Yep.
but from the perspective of those who live in the city and pay the rates. It's a balance between achieving the two things.
I'm just looking at number 6, paragraph 67, which sort of sets out the time frames there. Just to understand practically, if it was to be extended out to 6 weeks, what impact would it have on that? Is there a middle ground that enables us to meet our requirements on other matters and still allow that?
So is it possible, Your Worship, to leave the minimum in there, and that I will go and look at an option to, if I can,
Yes.
to increase that 4-week period? I just can't make any promises without going through the dates. There are a number of pre-scheduled meetings that are already there for adoption and so forth, and we are expecting a significant number of submissions, so we do need to allow enough time to consider those submissions as well. So we try to be as balanced as we can. We still think even with the minimum it will be tight, but I will do my best to look at.
So what you're saying then, Deputy Mayor, is that the statement of proposal would come back to us, and when you bring that back, you will then pick up this expanding out the opportunity for submissions to 6 weeks and present that back to us?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be happy
Yes,
with that.
all right. And I'm getting nods
Your
around the
Worship, there
table.
may be some people wanting more time than 6 weeks. From my involvement in the previous occasions, I would want the opportunity to suggest something a bit more like 2 months. And I understand, I don't want to necessarily speak to that now, but I don't want that option cut off.
Yes.
Next time, and I'm happy to give a proposition to the staff so they can see how things would fit and things like that, so provided I can do that.
What message we're sending here is, please go away and see how you can accommodate a longer period of submission to enable all those who want to, have time to prepare them all.
It's the time for communication from us, Your Worship, that often takes the longest. How do we get out to the groups that want to hear from us about exactly how it works for them?
So my expectation, as has been in the past with any of these things, is when the statement of proposal comes back, there is a comprehensive engagement plan sitting behind it that we can all look at And that will happen this time too. So that will give us a chance next time to look at that.
You shall bring back options and consequences of those options
Yes.
at the SCP stage.
Councillor Mallett, did I have you down for a
Yes,
question?
please. Just an expansion on Gordon's point. This whole area is very sensitive and for very good reasons. And we have been warned consistently that one of the biggest hurdles we run is getting the process right, such that there's no suggestion of predetermination, etc., etc. Has someone, no disrespect, Richard, but someone with given a legal look at the way we've gone through the whole process thus far and okayed what we're doing?
Thank you, Councillor Mallett. Yes, we work closely with the partners at Tompkins Wake in terms of the process we followed, and we've checked as we went through the workshop process that the workshop information was encouraged an appropriate process as well. They reviewed this memorandum, they'll review the statement of proposal, and they'll also provide comment on the report that comes up with the SCP as well.
And there's no areas they've said we're sailing close to the wind or we're being a bit tight here? Or
At this stage, no.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any other questions on this report? Okay, thank you. So there's a recommendation of 9.
Your Worship, Your Worship, I had a question of you perhaps, of the resolution. Given the answer to my question before that it was required to put in the other options that council's considered, there's no reference to that in the motion. Is there a reason for that? And it would give me some surety, and maybe the public as well, if there was reference to that in here, and it doesn't seem to change the council.
So my understanding is the legal requirement of a statement of proposal requires options to be put in it. Am I correct? It's a legal obligation.
Yep, so we have to provide a balanced view to the community through the statement of proposal of providing information on all options. So
including the current option, the current rating system?
Yep.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, if it's a legal requirement.
Legal requirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to a point, just following on from what Councillor McPherson has raised, you'll note that the last recommendation there is in red. And when I presented at workshop number 3, I talked about using a targeted rate as a transitional option because the other options didn't seem to have all the merits. We recently found out that some of the options that we discounted at that stage do have merits. So I've removed the word targeted rate from there. I just want to spend some time while we're preparing the statement of proposal to consider other options to transition over a 10-year period that may also be relevant and may provide easier administration and so forth.
Could I then ask a question based on that from our experience in the 1999-2000 rating review, which I know Mr Gibson was around for? There was the proposal there was a proposal at that time which I think the transition options included changing to capital in some sectors of council operations and staying on land and gradually morphing them all across. Is that one of the things that you're...
That's not currently one of the options we're considering. It's more about, one of the ones I discounted at the workshop number 3 was the remissions approach, and we discounted that because it was going to, one of the reasons was it was going to distort my profit and loss account, potentially impact on my ratios with Fitch. I've found out through our auditors that potentially it won't distort my revenue number, and therefore it's still a viable option for me to consider. So I just want some time to work through that and see what it looks like.
Are there other options that you now might like?
We've had a workshop and we've presented some items to council. If I become aware of any others, I will discuss that with the worship about whether or not we include those, and I have to bring those back as part of I have to bring those back as a discussion to council as well to make sure you're aware of what I'm doing. So if I do come across anything, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallett, do you have a question?
Just a point of clarity. I think, Dave, that what we did back then was we didn't ask so much for whether residentials could be land and commercials could be capital. I don't recall. What we did ask for, could some services like could water be charged on for example, on a capital value basis, whereas stormwater could be charged on a land value basis? Because I don't think John might, through your worship, through Richard to John, I don't think you can charge per sector, like...
No, I said sector of council operations.
Right.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
So we don't need to have that discussion here. Okay, so have I got a mover and a seconder for this motion? Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by me. Anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? No? So we'll go to the...
I wish to speak against the motion, which is my understanding. Obviously, the proposal will be that we will move from a land-based rating system to capital. When, in discussion with members of the community and with fellow councillors and that, it appears to me that we are sort of trying to get this capital because of the likes of the Chartwells and the base and all those, whereas a huge development, and it is believed that they are not actually paying their fair share. When I look at it, it's, well, I think it's 64% of the rate, or it's not take, it's called a yield, is from residential. And looking at it, I think there's 17 of the suburbs in Hamilton here have got an increase compared to 13 of the suburbs have got a decrease. I believe that we have been speaking here previously about the reduction of rates so that we can give the community something back. And yet in 17 of these suburbs, all we're going to do is to increase their rate. We're not going to reduce anything for them at all. And yet in 13, I think it is, we're actually going to have a reduction. So it seems to me that it's a little bit unfair to those persons, of course, who have put a lot of hard effort into trying to improve their properties and all that type of thing. And I will be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Toomey. Councillor Mallett?
Thanks. Just a point on what Leo said. I think it's be careful that I haven't heard any councillors saying we need to get more from from Chartwell or the base. I've heard people saying, oh, that's what this will do to Chartwell or to the base. And I think it would be dangerous to have on record that people, any councillors have been suggested that we've got to get more from Chartwell or the base or less from someone else. I think what councillors have said, which I think you may not have, you sort of said what you may not have meant to say, or may not have meant to say. So I just think that we should just record that.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes, Your Worship. I'm not going to support the resolution, slightly different reasons from Councillor Tooman. I think that this council has approached, as did the last council, the change to capital value from a philosophical approach more than a practical approach, and that worries me because the consequences are often not seen as clearly. I have a philosophical bent towards capital value. I think it slightly more accurately affects ability to pay, only slightly, mind you, but the consequences are going to be major ups and downs for different suburbs, different groups within different suburbs, between some types of commercial and others. And I actually don't think the situation is so broken that we need to have fixed it. And I think we have started this with an assumption that the whole thing is broken. I definitely think we need to look at the rating system currently as it is and tweak some aspects, maybe some capping, which is something that I've raised and some others have raised from time to time. I've certainly heard examples where the current land value rates are unfair. Some people paying $10,000, $12,000 for a house because it happens to be on a valuable bit of land. I would like us to have looked at some of those, some tweaking issues first before we looked at upending the whole apple cart. And so my worry is that by doing this, we will raise a lot of community angst to no good purpose, and we will receive several hundred, or maybe as in the past several thousand submissions, we may backtrack on the whole thing. And I'm not saying that because I'd like it to happen, I'm saying that based on the experience of the last 2 or 3 times we've tried it. And I don't think our approach has been 100% right. I think we've followed the maths more than the practicalities of the situation. I was going to say followed the bean counters, but that would have been unfair. I just think that you've got to be doing these sorts of things for good practical reasons. It doesn't deliver us any greater yield, and I'm not sure that it's all that practical in the end of the day.
Right, thank you. Councillor Wilson, did you want to speak?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Look, at the end of the day, I think no rating system is fair. However, I would suggest, and I think I heard Councillor McPherson support, that he also believes that a move to capital is fairer than the current system. And let's remind us of some of the oddities that occur under the current system. You could basically have 1,000 square metre section next to each other, and a little old lady in a 2-bedroom house flushing the toilet 2 or 3 times a day, putting half a bag of rubbish out, and next to it could be a multi-level complex or an apartment block, and in theory they are paying the same rates. That's not fair. And over the last 10 years that I've sat in this council chamber, we've probably gone out to public consultation, well, in fact, we've had a statutory obligation. So we've gone out once every term. And inherently what happens is some councillors around the table who philosophically don't really want to shift throws out a whole lot of scenarios and options. That's what we do. We throw out lots of options. And in the end, we all get everybody incredibly confused. And then we create such a mess that we ultimately back down. So this is, my point is, we need to focus on what this is. This is a pursuit of a fairer system. This is a pursuit of an option that I believe will reflect more fairly the arduous task of putting down a tax. And that's what rates are for all intents and purposes. It's not a motivated attempt to try to get the base or Chartwell to pay more, although I must say that in every other major city in New Zealand they are paying more. And I find it fascinating that they have the gall to come up to us and say how unfair it is, when in fact they are quite happy to live with it in other major cities. What I think is unfair is the first scenario. 2 lots of land, identical in size, one little old lady living in a house next to a larger apartment type block paying the same rates. That's not fair. Let's have the courage and the conviction to go out to the people, and let's, for once and for all, make the right decision. Do not be intimidated at the first hurdle. You're elected to make tough decisions. You stand up in the community and say, I want to be an advocate for people. That means we go out with public consultation. We don't just simply say, gosh, this will be unpleasant. Oh, we might get hundreds, we might get thousands of submissions. That's our job. Have the courage, let's go out with a clear plan, a fair plan to move this city towards a capital-based rating system and in line with the majority of metropolitan cities in this country. Let's stop being the oddball.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Right, Councillor Leary?
I just want to speak for the motion and agree with everything that Councillor Wilson has said. At the start of this triennium, a lot of conversation was had about let's get this job done, let's get the rating system fixed. He's right, no rating system is fair. And while Councillor Tooman, I hear your message, there are winners and losers that will happen if we change from land to capital value. There are winners and losers now.
Yes.
Over the years that I've been on council, the amount of residents that have come to me, some of them in tears, that sit on the boundaries of our city, which is ever expanding, on small rural properties that they are now grandparents and the property stayed in the family for years and it's a small house, 3-bedroom house, but they just happen to be on the fringes and on a big piece of land that pay extraordinary amounts of rates while Nana and Grandad are on a pension because it's land value and not capital value. I'd need 5 sets of arms and toes to count the amount of times that I've had those heart-wrenching conversations over the years. Neither system is fair. It is a blunt instrument. We have winners and losers now. We will have winners and losers in the future. But it's not fair when I use the CBD, as Councillor Wilson did, as an example, that an 8-floor building with 60 employees and 4 or 5 commercial businesses basically pays the same as the 1-level building next door that is a jeweller that's been in the business for 40 years and has 3 employees. That's not fair. So we know we're going to get these discussions and these pleas. It's fair, it's not fair. We know the majority of our submissions will be from the people who are receiving the increases.
Yep.
We won't get overwhelmed with the people that are receiving the decreases. They're going to see it as, this is a fairer system for me. So we do need to be brave and we do need to have courage. This is just the next step. We need to get on with it and try and have the nettle to go through the process, listen to the feedback, keep an open mind and make the decision then. Today is not the decision, not the time to back away.
Okay. Any others for or against? Right, we're going to go to the board on this. And that's the motion up here that we are voting on.
Andrew.
No.
Andrew is not
Andrew.
voting. We're using
Carried,
the...
Your Worship, 10 votes for, 2 against.
Oh, it didn't show up, did it?
No.
No.
Councillors McPherson and Tooman voted against,
Right.
and the other 10 voted for the motion. Apologies, Your Worship, I didn't remove
So
councillors.
CFO, you heard some of the feedback about the time frame for submissions, so...
Absolutely, Your
you
Worship.
can
We'll
address
bring that back in our report in 31 July.
Yes, okay, that's very good. All right, so I'm just checking, Richard, do you have any other items in the agenda?
Apart from setting the rates, no.
The rate resolution.
Right, the
We
rates
need to deal with
resolution.
Yep.
Yes,
So just on that rates resolution, just to explain what the changes were, so councillors consider that over the break. What we've done is we've been more efficient with how that paragraph's set up. Previously, we listed all the various types of property that were considered non-rateable. What we've done now is we've referenced the schedule of the Local Government Act in respect of special use land, which has a definition under the Act. It was a recommendation from Tompkins Wake to be more efficient in the way we approach it. So when they're reading that over the break, they'll understand the context for the change.
Right, thank you. So we're going to break now for afternoon tea, and remember we've got some people joining us, and then we'll take it the first item after so that you can get back to the sick bed. So we'll break till 4:15 because we've got people joining us. Right, thank you.
Thank you.